All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like the roll call, please.
Adam.
Here.
Ganaway.
Here.
Gibson. Kapler.
Here.
Ormsby. Stoltenberg.
Here.
Wendland.
Here. All right, thank you. We had minutes from the last meeting of August 17th.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of the minutes from August 17th as submitted.
I'll second. Yep.
All right, I think I'd give that one to you. Yeah, all right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from August 17th, 2022. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes from August 17th are approved. All right, well, we are the Plan and Zone Commission. We are an appointed board by the mayor and city council to review matters of land use, plats, replats, zoning, and such. I see a few people in the audience tonight. We are interested in your input. We only have one case on the agenda, so I know what you're all here for, I think. But we would appreciate your input at the appropriate time. I will recognize the audience and have you go back to the podium to my right and to your left and state your name and provide your input. And with that, we will begin.
Thank you, Chair. First case before you is case 22-070. This is a preliminary plat, Legacy Corners. The location is north of 53rd Avenue and west of Middle Road, so just northwest of the roundabout, our current only roundabout. The applicant is Middle Road Developers, LC. This is a 4-lot commercial subdivision. I will mention there has been 2 related cases for this particular proposal. 22-066 and 22-067 were both special use permits before the Board of Adjustment for a car wash and then up to 20 vehicle fueling stalls related to a gas station, so a gas station. Those were both approved by the Board of Adjustment with the submitted concept plan, which you'll see in a moment. I'll mention that this is a zone C2, so anything more than 8 vehicles requires a special use permit in C2 district, and then car washes are only permitted by special use in the C2 district. Take a look at the zoning. This is like I mentioned, this is C2. All 4 corners at this intersection of Middle and 53rd are C2. To the northwest, we have residential. Single family R1 and then a R3 with a overlay, which reduced the lot size and lot width, just the northwest. And then across the street, you have a similar configuration with R5 surrounding C2, and the southeast R3 surrounding C2. And then to the south, where the summit is located, you have commercial lining 53rd, and then some single family and R3 to the farther southwest. The future land use map designates this area as neighborhood commercial, surrounded by urban medium intensity and then urban low intensity farther to the northwest. This has been the case for many years, so I just want to give a little historical context. Shown on the left is the future land use map adopted by the city in 1984. This corner, well, it wasn't a corner at that time, it was proposed corner, was shown as commercial. Then in 1994, future land use map shows a more familiar configuration with 4 corners of commercial with a medium office transitional land use and then a single family farther out. And then in 2003, the 4 corners remained commercial. And then the surrounding area was office research, a land use that now has transitioned to residential to our current map. Moving on to the submitted plat. This is a preliminary plat. As mentioned, this is 4 lots. So we have one lot here, lot 2 here, lot 3, and an outlot which contains a floodplain and detention area. The access will be the proposed access is off Middle Road for the lots 1 and 2. All access can be given off Middle Road, so this is a private drive lane 50-foot wide access easement. There's also shown a 50-foot access easement on Lot 3 that is contemplated in the plan, and that would access off 53rd Avenue. And that's really contemplated for future development, for future commercial development on that lot, and would likely be replatted, but may not be required. As mentioned, these are all private drive lanes, so these aren't city streets. So they would be maintained, built by the developer. A submitted concept was actually submitted with the special use permits and with this plat. The proposed gas station would be on Lot 1 of the development, so located here. And all other lots have no proposed uses as of yet. The access, as meant, the 50-foot access to the north of that gas station would contain 3 lanes, so 1 ingress lane and then 2, a right and a left turn lane for exiting this development. The special use permit was approved for a car wash. It's not shown on this concept, but that leaves the option open for the developer and would be reviewed and recommended for approval by this body. And all of these lots, so any development on these lots would require a site development plan. Just want to reiterate that as well. Also located on the site, I should mention, and this is existing, is an 8 to 10 foot berm. This is located about there. This was put in at the development of Haley Heights 4th Edition. So this provides, this currently buffers the commercially zoned area from the residential zoned area. And you can see present existing site photos of that berm from Addison Drive. While not shown, there's no access shown to Addison or 55th Avenue Court, and as shown on the plat, but staff would recommend that the current proposed configuration is sufficient for the site, and so we would recommend there be no access from these internal drive lanes to Addison or 55th. Staff would also recommend there provide some pedestrian amenities or facilities, so sidewalks. Where they'll be put would be relative to the development, so they can be looked at, and as this site develops at final plat stage or site development plan stage. With that, staff recommends approval of preliminary plat of Legacy Corners with the following conditions of no access to Addison Drive or 55th Avenue Court, and the inclusion of sidewalks along the private drive lanes. And I can take any questions.
All right, thank you, Taylor, for the presentation. Mark, anything additional since publication or the presentation?
Nothing new, Mr. Chairman. I would just maybe a gentle reminder for the commissioners, but also for our audience, kind of where we're at today with this proposal in the development review process. And there's been a previous hearing by a different body in the Board of Adjustment on the use, and those uses were confirmed. And now we're talking about the legal subdivision of land, and does that subdivision meet our code and state code? So that's really the analysis staff is prepared today, and the analysis we're prepared to discuss.
Okay. Thank you. All right, questions from the commission regarding this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 questions. They're more forward-thinking questions, a little bit more future questions. The first one would be regarding the berm. So the berm's in place. As the property develops, which we're getting close to that happening, will there be landscaping included? Because the berm isn't really part of this parcel that we're looking at, but the parcels do affect the neighbors. So that's, I guess, maybe a statement, not a question.
Well, I think it's a question too.
Yeah.
And it's a good one, I think, yeah.
So the question is, will the berm be retained or?
No, will the berm be planted?
Will you,
Okay,
let's say only this lot is put through for development. If that's the case, would that encompass landscaping on the berm as well, potentially, at this stage versus when the adjacent lot to the west is actually developed?
So items such as landscaping, tree factors, screening, buffering, those would be addressed at the site development review stage.
I
So
understand.
that's
That's why I'm saying it's
yeah.
more of a
But
statement.
in this case, I'm with you, it's a little bit of a nuance, and I'm with you on the timing. But let's assume it's a site plan comes in for just this lot one. It's not part of,
The berm isn't part of this
berm
parcel.
isn't part of that lot. Would staff at that time be looking at any landscaping requirements outside of the four corners, if you will, of that lot?
Given that the north of Lot 1 is an outlot, so that's a detention and a floodplain, and then just south of the cul-de-sac likely would not be developable, but given the configuration, at that time, we could look at the screening and buffering requirements. If it were never to develop further, that would be a good question. Whether
Let me weigh a little bit on that, since we've kind of gone off that track. What I think we want to see as planners is development that is successful and replicates other successful developments in our area. And we have some others in our community that we would look at, maybe near Falcon Avenue, if you will, to talk about how this overall site might develop as far as a buffering, landscaping standpoint. Our landscaping handbook does not contemplate a situation where you have a small parcel developing within a larger. But we as planners, and myself as the zoning official, have the authority to require extraordinary measures if it makes sense for the overall development. And those could be conditions to a site development plan that may be delivered to this commission in the future. We don't have that for you today, so I don't want to, hem myself in or hem the city into saying yes to any particular development or landscaping, because I don't know exactly how that might lay out. But we do have that authority, and we have thought about that.
Okay,
That's really, I'm just putting it out there.
yeah.
The other question I had, Brent, we've talked before about future plans for this roundabout. Is that in the CIP right now?
No, the construction is not. We currently have a grant submittal through Congressman Miller Meek's office, almost $2 million that we're asking for, which would give us money to actually do all the design of this work. Because construction, we're looking $20 million to get from south side of Forest Grove, where our current project's gonna leave, to get all the way down to Crow Creek. We'll have to phase that in, but no, we do not have the ability to fund that at this time. So what we're trying to do is get that design done, so that way we have a shelf-ready project, and we can go for some of those larger grants that are out there right now that we don't qualify for. I will know on that in the next couple months. We've made it through 3 rounds of cuts so far. We made it through the House Appropriations Committee. Now we're waiting on the Senate to approve it, and if that happens, it goes to the president, at which point we would begin that design immediately.
So that design is for the whole corridor?
Yes.
Not just the roundabout?
Correct. That'll be for that entire stretch that I was saying, from the
Okay.
south side of Forest Grove, where our project this year is going to leave off, all the way down to Crow Creek, actually south of Crow Creek, where the 4-lane stops just north of Wyndham West there. So that would include redesign of this roundabout. And then what I'm planning to do is, really, because of this development, as part of the traffic study that'll have to be done there, and we're talking, a massive corridor-wide one, is to lump in the intersection at Addison. Because we've heard from several of the residents, I've heard kind of secondhand from some of the meetings, but the traffic's getting a little difficult to get out of there already. And, as we put more development there, expand 53rd, that is in the 5-year CIP to finish the 4-lane of 53rd. I think it's in years 4 and 5 right now. We may have to do something with Addison, and that may involve, my envision is probably a potential another roundabout, given the short distance that we have between Addison and 53rd. So I will be including that in that traffic study. I feel pretty confident about that grant. So I think as this progresses and Mr. Fick continues to build out the property, we'll get a much better handle on what we can do at Addison.
All good news. Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
May I ask a follow-up question? Sure. During this planning for this development, I'm looking at where the entrance would be. Is there a traffic study being done to consider a left turn coming out of that
Which, on Middle or on 53rd?
on Middle? Because it's right, it looks like the entrance is very close to where the lanes would be merging after the roundabout. I just feel like, I don't know if there's an obstruction of being able to see.
No, there is no sight distance issues through there. It's actually pretty flat, but we've pushed that entrance, that full access point, as far north as we can get it, which is what I had asked for from a traffic engineering side. Get it as far away from the roundabout as you can. That's also why where you see the easement coming out on 53rd, we pushed that as far west as we could while still maintaining a safe distance from Addison. The same thing. We want to make sure that we don't ever have the potential to back up traffic into a roundabout. And you've got almost 700 feet that they're showing there, which is quite a distance.
Okay.
More than we have out at any of our sites on Forest Grove.
And it does provide for a left and right out,
Yep. full
north and
access.
southbound, yeah.
And then just, one of the things about roundabouts is you can go right to get left, because you can go through the roundabout and come back around,
Right.
which we don't think about that a lot, but that's pretty common.
Definitely benefit.
I'd like to piggyback on that. Based on what I'm seeing here on 53rd, there's only going to be an expected right-in. There's not going to be any
That
way to
initial
exit.
concept was, at my request, was initially going to be a right-in, but that's because at that time we were considering whether or not to allow potential access onto Addison. And removing that access point onto Addison, that would now become a right-in, right-out.
With delineators?
Right.
We have a median there, so we're good.
Oh,
Yep, we won't allow another cut into that
Yeah.
median.
I'm a big
And that-
fan of those now.
Yeah.
They're working.
They are.
And that's another reason that we think, at least I think, that a roundabout potentially at Addison may be necessary, because that traffic coming out that may want to head south or east, I don't want people pulling U-turns in in the Addison intersection.
Yeah.
And that would give them a way out. Plus, we know that the neighborhood uses it, quite substantially.
Thank you. That, to me, I was looking at this thinking, we don't want to just start with something and then later come back and find out
Yep.
what a mess. If the plan isn't there to begin with on how people are going to get in and get out, we would end up with a mess.
Yep.
So no plowing, snow plowing, all private, okay? And the sidewalks you were referring to, that would be interior to that, not on Middle or 53rd?
Yep.
Okay,
Some interior circulation.
yep,
Things that we've run across in kind of similar developments where we don't have right-of-way, so we can't force or I should say, we didn't enforce public sidewalks previously. We've got some, honestly, TBK is probably a good example.
Yeah.
We've been going back and doing what we can to increase pedestrian circulation because it was all on private ground.
yep, okay. Anyone else on the commission regarding this matter? Nope. All right, anyone in the audience would like to present regarding this matter? Yes, sir, please.
I'm Dan Corey, and I live at 55th, on 55th Avenue, 5056, which is where you have your entrance there on the right side of Middle Road there. It's in those condominiums, Century Heights 2. I liked the questions about the berm. And that's pretty much, Haley Heights has gathered a massive group of folks, and I have talked with our people in Century Heights. We had an HOA meeting just about what's happening, you know, just to keep people informed. Because what's happening here eventually is gonna, you know, the special use permit has green lighted all of these now, all these tracks and all the corners. And so what I'm trying to do is keep our people and the neighbors informed as to where you are proceeding here. And the big question is the berms. And that's where all these folks at whatever that next meeting where you talk and input on berms, that's probably where they'll pack the house for that. So I really appreciate those questions. Now, the gentleman giving our presentation and the gentleman over here on the end, I'm sorry, I don't know your names. When you started asking questions about the berms, I heard a lot of hesitancy, and why, I don't know. But to keep it simple, there is a tract of land, an empty lot, in the south, that would be the southeast corner. So the roundabout's here over in the southeast corner. Perfect berm. If you get a chance, just drive by there and see Red Fox Road. Then you have a beautiful berm, huge berm with tall trees, and then you have a fence. And I'm assuming this was done 20-some years ago when all this was built. And then you have that empty lot. So there is a perfect example of a berm. The berm that's up around Addison and all that right now, yay so high. I can stand on Middle Road and I can see half of the living room houses over on Addison. So those folks are not protected. So if you could put in something or whomever, once again, I don't know when all this is done. I'm just voicing my thoughts here. So whenever that can be done, put in some trees that grow like the example I gave you. It's an awesome berm there. And folks will be talking about that when they come. Another thing I saw today when I was driving, you were talking about the entrance there. I pray you have a lot of discussion, somehow educating the public on that bike trail. There was, as I'm on the north from BDK, heading towards the roundabout, a young mother, 3 of her, they look like triplets, like about 5 or 6 years old, riding their bike ahead of them. She was here, they were there. They're gonna go across that crazy entrance coming in and out. So I pray somehow you educate the public. Parents, you can't do that. You cannot, that's a danger zone. And they talked about putting signs up and it's our responsibility to be careful and stop and all that. I agree. But being 65 years old, I'm out riding my e-bike, I get stupid once in a while. And I've gone across something where traffic's coming from behind me here and it's coming from there. And it was my fault because I didn't stop and walk my bike across. But you know how that goes. You got young family and kids going across there. And so they need a major education. So please do that. And then the last thing, to get to this point, I was here for the adjustment meeting. I'm just learning city council and how all this works.
Board of Adjustment.
I'm sorry?
The Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment, thank you. I was in for that meeting. And I did a lot of study and I had to do a cram course in how this process all works. And in there, you had standards to approve a special permit, a special use permit. One of those standards was, is this harmonious? And everyone voted yes. And we're neighborhood. And I request that maybe you folks tell somebody down there, let's take that out. Don't make that a standard, because obviously that huge gas station is not harmonious with where we live. It's a neighborhood, So I hope someone will talk about that standard and get it out of there. So, but thank you for listening.
Appreciate it. And we do have work coming on the comprehensive plan. Again, we're looking at that and some reworks. Will we be having the neighborhood input or the community input in any of that process coming up, Mark?
Yep, so there's a comprehensive plan that the city is going to update. It's been about 5 years since we
Right.
last did one. And really that's describing and defining land use for the future in the city of Bettendorf. And so, there'll be more information coming. We actually aren't under contract yet. I still have to get the contract approved through council, but that's something where citizens would have input.
Yeah, and that's a good time. So what he's referencing is there's going to be a 5-year update to the comprehensive plan, and part of the comprehensive plan would be definitions of uses and things like that, commercial zones and that, and compatibility. It would be a great time for, and we look for a lot of input from the community at those development times so that we've got feedback from folks to do that. I remember, stickers on boards and all kinds of comments being written, and we've engaged the public in all those cases that I've been involved with. So it'd be a great time to provide input when that's done. And you'll usually put out a notice in the community about that and watch the website. So, yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Karen Adams, and I actually live in the neighborhood across Middle Road from that. So I'm on the northeast corner, and there's, of course, a huge vacant area there. And we hear a lot of traffic noise as people drive along Middle Road. There's some guy who comes in this souped-up car with his mufflers all jacked, and, 7 o'clock in the morning, he's driving along there. The sound really carries across that open area of land, and I wondered if there are any plans for that land too?
No, not at this time. That would be by the individual owner that would bring that in. And actually, it's been kind of a mystery. All these years, I've lived in Bettendorf about 26 years, and it's amazing to me that intersection has never developed. We were just talking about it up here before the meeting, and with the concept or the idea that, TBK and all that grew, it leapfrogged all this, and this still stood here. So I think one of the things, it would not surprise me, I have no crystal ball, but given the increasing scarcity of land, it would probably be more likely you'll see things coming, but interest rates and all kinds of other things can change that. But there's only so much ground in Bettendorf, and it grew farther out. It wouldn't surprise me if it starts coming closer in again as well. So yeah, that's as smart as I get about that.
Okay, and the other concern I had was, we hear a lot of sirens because we're on the route like from 80 going to hospitals or clinics, as well as the fire station that's a little farther down Middle Road near, Schoolhouse Road, something like that. So 2 roundabouts so close by would, I hope they're big enough for the fire trucks to go around.
Yeah.
That was one of my other concerns. So I really appreciate you listening to us about this, because I know the sound will carry across, but I'm just hoping I can turn the music up in my house.
You have that background noise going in.
Yeah.
And
as
regarding,
long as I can hear the emergency sirens, we'll be safe.
yeah, I don't live far from that fire station either, and I hear those sirens. It's kind of interesting too. From my house, I can hear the train down by the river,
Yes,
and it's
we
like
all
that is
hear
a
it come
long
up.
way away. But it's a weird phenomenon. But I think you'll actually find out as they build some more buildings, it'll be quieter because they'll absorb some of the sound instead of it traveling straight across the field. So that aspect might actually get better with development, but have to see. So, but thank you for your input.
Yes, thank you
Yeah,
for
appreciate it.
listening to us.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Gail, and I live on Emily Road, and I have a question about the entrance to the gas station. I have never seen a gas station with just one entrance, and if they're gonna have 20 pumps there, I'm concerned about the traffic going in and out with only one entrance. And the other thing is, the berm doesn't go all the way down on 55th Avenue, down about the court area there. There is none down there. So my concern is, and I know this is a future thing, is some kind of fence around the gas station to contain debris and more trees or something, because there is a house right at the end of that court, and they're gonna have right out their front door. They have no berm. There's nothing to block the side of that gas station for them. The berm ends probably about 2/3 of the way down, or 3/4.
And I'm going to look to our engineer, but I'm guessing in part, and the engineer for the developers here too, but I'm guessing that has to do somewhat with the floodway and drainage. Brett, so can you enlighten on that?
Yeah, Taylor, I don't know if you can indicate, but she's absolutely correct. Yeah, the berm stops about the south side of the bulb there, so you can see the contours. And then just to the east there, is the 100-year floodplain line, at which point they cannot put fill in that area. So they will not be able to build a berm in the floodplain.
Okay.
They just, by DNR regulations, we
I
can't do
thought
that.
maybe for those people down there, if they built like a fence around the back of that gas station and some trees or something to help block the lights and stuff for the people, because those are expensive homes. They're $500,000 homes plus, and
Yeah, I think ultimately those questions will come, next month or whenever the gas station actually brings their site plan.
okay, and the one entrance to 20 pumps, you think that's gonna work off a busy road?
So it's got the one entrance on the middle, but it has 3 entrances into the property is the concept that we saw. So the private drive that they are bringing in, which is essentially a
Oh,
street,
they're gonna make another,
so it's, Taylor, can you flip to the
Yeah, I kinda
concept? Where I
didn't
know it's
understand that.
concept, but there is 3 entrances actually into the gas station. There you go. So
if
there's,
they could show those, that would be
yeah, there's
helpful.
one there. That's gonna have to get pushed further west, but
Oh, that's gonna be a road there?
there's one there,
Okay.
and then there's 2 in from the backsides.
Okay, so
So I think the circulation will be pretty good.
the people that go around the back, they're gonna have to go back around and back out. I'm talking about just the entrance off of Middle. It's gonna be kinda crazy with 20 pumps.
And they'll push through. We'll have to push that one further west, but yes, I mean, it's our arterial,
Okay,
and so it's meant to carry the most traffic, and, there will be delays, but again, it's delays on the private side, them getting out, not delays on Middle Road. Our concern from the city's end is making sure that we don't delay traffic on Middle. We can't-
okay, that's what I was confused about. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. Anyone else with regard to this matter? Okay, last call of the audience, back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number 22-070, subject to staff recommendations.
I'll second.
I'll third.
All right, Ann on the right got that one. So this is a little inside thing. We have usually Ann here and there and left, and right now we got left and right. So, okay, we have a motion and a second to approve case 22-070, which is a preliminary plat. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, 22-070 is recommended for approval. And to the comments that Dan had mentioned, yes, this is just a concept plan that they gave us at this stage. The final site plan will be coming later, and that's when the detail input would be examined. So can we have it quiet for the folks talking here, not in the audience, okay? Thank you. So that would be the time for folks to come in and make their comments relative to development and/or work with the developer and/or engineer. I know you've had some meetings along the way, but that's when we really get into the nitty-gritty. So, okay? All right. Thanks for coming. We have one more agenda item, though, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, if I may, Chair, we have one more agenda item, just an informational item. Currently, the city, and with other jurisdictions in Scott County, are updating the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So we wanted to just inform you of what a hazard mitigation plan is, the process, and just kind of give you the background on it, and showing you where we are in the process. So what is the hazard mitigation plan? This has been required through multiple federal statutes since 2000, and it identifies any action that reduces or eliminates a long-term risk to people and their property from hazards. Our current plan was adopted in 2018, Scott County Hazard Mitigation Plan. It's a 5-year plan, so it expires in June. So that's why we are busy at work with other staff and stakeholders in the county. Some purposes of the plan, major purposes are by having an adopted plan, we are eligible for federal funding through mitigation funding. So one is the HMGP funding, that is hazard mitigation grant funding. We're doing flood buyouts right now along Parkway Drive, and Mark can go into that in a little more depth. but there's also pre-disaster mitigation actions via policy or actual, capital improvements that would mitigate disasters, reduce risk for future disasters.
Taylor, can I add to that real quick? Just a prime example, we just were awarded a $600,000 grant, just approved it through council the other night to add some new storm sewer down just north of Sevier Steel. So it's a prime example. Sevier gets flooded every major rain event. It's just a very bad old system down through there. You got 80 acres of runoff coming down that hill, all pointed right at them, and Sevier, being there so long, kind of surrounds all the storm sewer. But yeah, under the HMGP, we were just
Cool.
awarded a grant that will hopefully will get built next year, and we'll be able to help them quite significantly.
So we've had this, we have an adopted plan, we're updating that plan. Part of that is updating our risks, identified risks, listing some of our critical assets in the community, also identifying what current actions we're taking, mitigation actions. So that's just what our community is doing right now, and then we put that together through all these jurisdictions. This is a slide, by the way. I borrowed this from the Bi-State Regional Commission, and this is a tornado from 1990 in LeClaire on the Mississippi.
It's a great picture.
Wow.
Would you stand there and take that picture?
It was probably sunny in Bettendorf at that very time, so.
As mentioned, there's various reasons for being eligible under federal legislation. And FEMA will review this plan, so once we submit it at the end of the year, kind of go through some of these. So one of the tasks we are working on is ranking our hazards. So these hazards have been identified by a committee, a steering committee for the plan update. 15 of them are from the last plan. 4 have been added: cyber terrorism, human disease, a pandemic, and public disorder, and then railway transportation incidents, all because of those incidents occurring within the last plan update. So we submit our rankings for our community, as do other communities, and we have different rankings. And then the Bi-State, who's working on the grant, lists them for the whole county, takes all of them, and then we have a county-wide ranking.
And when you say ranking, do they say this is the most important, this is number one, and so on
So
down?
actually, that's a good question. The previous plan ranked the hazards 1 through 15, though that was deemed for, when we were applying for these grants, something that showed up as a 10 versus a 5. They might have been very close. It's hard to rank orderly like that. So this exercise or update, we are going through a low, medium, and high ranking system, but also using a tool developed by the Emergency Management Agency, Scott County. And it's a tool that allows you to input human risk, loss of life, property, some other categories, and then also how prepared the community is for that, if they've either have capital improvements or mitigation projects that have been built or ongoing, or either other plans. And this is incorporating other plans that we currently have adopted through fire, police department, et cetera, through public works. So it's really a collaboration across departments and within the city. And then we also, these are the jurisdictions participating in the other jurisdictions, but we'll also get into, where are we here? I'll show you other advisory committee members. So Red Cross, other agencies, or nonprofits, et cetera. So there's a lot of collaboration, getting all input, and just making sure that all these scenarios can be identified, and maybe areas that we aren't as prepared for. Those are the things we can concentrate on. So when that scenario does happen, we can mitigate and reduce the loss of life or property loss as well. So currently we've been there was a kickoff meeting earlier this year, and there have been multiple community meetings.
These two, yeah.
When we've had meetings like this, and we've had internal meetings with staff. So we've got a variety of different public information meetings. And FEMA's really encouraging the stakeholders within the plan to do this even more than we have in the past. So, and it gets discussion going and also engages and educates about these risks. So currently we're in that phase 2 of the timeline of the planning process. We're looking at our mitigation actions, evaluating our risks, also looking at updating our critical assets. So adding, making sure we have all of our critical pumps on there, municipal infrastructure, but not also private infrastructure so we have community centers or areas that can hold a lot of people at once, gymnasiums, et cetera. And then also there's even critical locations that have, hazardous chemicals, fuel, et cetera, that need to be identified as critical assets as well. The next phase is going to finalize the draft, and there'll be a formal public meeting review of that draft later this year. And then that draft will be submitted to FEMA for review. And it can take up to 5 months, I guess. Hopefully no longer, because then we'll be expired. And the city will needs to adopt this plan for the update as well, prior to that expiration of the hazard mitigation plan. So yeah, our plan's on our website, also on Scott County's website. There's tons of information on FEMA and the Iowa Department of Homeland Security. So yeah, we just wanted to kind of inform you what we're doing related to this, and it's not directly, doesn't go through your body, but it is very relevant to the actions and planning process.
Thrilled to see you're doing it. Yeah, good stuff.
I can't overstate the importance of this plan and this work that Taylor and Lisa and myself, to a lesser degree, are working on and doing. A lot of people think about hazards and they think about the response to a hazard, the operational side of a hazard, and this is not that. This is something completely different. This is identifying hazards and mitigating them before they happen, so it's a prevention plan. It has led directly to funding for our community to take care of some of these things, often things that your constituents worry about when they come in here. Is this gonna cause flooding in my neighborhood? What's gonna happen? And the fact that we are working on this plan, that we're updating it, it keeps us in funding for mitigation activities, so that those are activities that we do before there's any damage, before anybody suffers a loss, and hopefully then nobody suffers a loss. It's really important work. There's a buyout program that I'm working on to buy out homes in flood-prone areas along Duck Creek. That in the 1990s, the street signs in this neighborhood were underwater, and people were literally being helicoptered out of these areas. And so much of this work happens, it's not something that is maybe the glory of event response, but it prevents those things from actually having to occur. The money we're gonna get to help down by the Severe Steel site could not be available to this community if we did not do this and did not do it in an appropriate way. So it's just super important work. I think it's good for you to know about it because it does relate to a lot of things that people come here and ask you about. Oh, I'm gonna be flooded by stormwater, I'm gonna be flooded by this. And we are always looking at those things and trying to identify them and be responsive, so.
So you've got earthquake, for example. You can't mitigate against an earthquake. You can mitigate against the impact or the result of an earthquake versus flooding. I mean, I think it's great.
Yes,
We can do the
mitigation
better
strategies
sewers
are
and.
different. Yeah, the mitigation strategies are different. On our building code does contemplate our earthquake risk
Okay.
for our where we're at in the world.
For our seismic zone, yep.
So there's a lot of things that happen that are just so under the radar.
But really glad they're there. Nobody knows they're there until they need them,
Right, yeah.
right? And then, they experience something and experience something less because they were there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the goal of the term mitigation, right? We're doing something before it happens. It's like prevention, right?
A common,
If you're a planner nerd like me, you think it's really cool, and the rest of you probably like, what the hell?
No, no.
Common grant, more rural communities in Scott County are tornado safety rooms. So that's
Yep.
been, we've seen that been awarded multiple times. So that's mentioning earthquakes. You can't mitigate the frequency of it, but it's securing areas for preventing loss of life in that instance.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of related building code. Like it opens it up to policy changes, improving planning and building codes as well. It's not just capital construction projects. So it's a large area.
I'm thrilled to hear it. And I don't know if I think I mentioned in here before, but I took the Citizens Academy last year, which I think everybody who's watching should take the Bettendorf Citizens Academy if they haven't, because you get a whole appreciation of the things that happen behind the scenes that just make the city work. And this is another example of it. And it makes you happy. And just a statement, one lady that was on our bus group with us as we went through that said, I was really kind of upset about the level of my taxes and frankly was going to complain to people in this process. And she got done with it and she said, I'm going to go home and pay my taxes and I'm happy to do it because now I understand what I get for it. And this is another example of some things people never see, but if it works well and the garbage picks up and the street gets plowed and people take care of us like the policeman back there, I feel good about it and I'm happy to pay my taxes and I really appreciate what you guys are doing to help it all work together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
May I ask a question?
please. Ann left.
This is for the whole county.
It is.
I remember having a conversation with, I'll just say, some officials after the last major flood about the challenges that our wastewater treatment facilities have during flooding and the imminence of a potential failure during that time. To me, that seems like a topic ripe for hazard mitigation. Is that being addressed in this
Very happy
process?
to say we have, since that occurred, in, was it 2019?
19, yep.
We have received between the 4 cities that own our wastewater plant almost $14 million in grant funding, specifically for flood protection at the water treatment plant. We have a $10 million federal EDA grant, actually from Economic Development Authority, that was granted, and then another $4 million through the state of Iowa that'll be used for what we're calling phase 1 and phase 2. But that is currently about 60% design, will be bid most likely by the end of the year and start construction in the spring.
Cool.
And that's full burn,
Awesome.
full burn protection around the entire wastewater treatment plant. And actually the city of Davenport is working on a grade separation. So with the increase in rail traffic that we've been going through, they're looking at an application to build an overpass at Concord, which is the only way in and out of the plant currently. You get stuck there from trains quite frequently, but then you add in the flooding component. So these are all tying together, and with the amount of grant money that's floating around in there's gonna be a lot of changes in the next 2 to 3 years.
That's great.
Ask a
Glad I asked that question.
And you get an
You had
answer
an
like that. I love
answer.
that. See how government works?
How
love
would I
it.
know if I hadn't asked?
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. All right, commission update.
We've talked about the comprehensive plan. We do have a contract negotiated in general form. It's not been presented to council. That will be presented to council on the first meeting in October, which I think is October 4th. And I would expect approval, but they have to review it and make their decision. But I would expect that we'll be under contract here soon, and then more meetings.
Good,
So,
yeah, well, no, it's good stuff. It's time to do it again, so yeah. The world's changed a lot in the last 5 years, so,
That's for sure.
yeah. All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thanks.